Okay, so we're going to have a look at player attacks in this next section of the exploring game, making it in ClickTeam Fusion 2.5. So I've loaded the application and I've gone into frame 1. You can double click to go into frame 1, but you should know that by this stage. You can also get to it through the storyboard editor where it loads. Okay, we've got our player, we've got some bad guys, got the teleporters, got some walls, got some lives, got some health. We are going to be able to attack back at the enemies. So I'm going to simplistically show you how to do some launching of objects. So I want another arrow, so I'm just going to clone this one. Now this arrow, I will edit the look of it because I want you to visually see the difference. So let's make these bluey rather than greeny. Tolerance high. There we go. And it won't have updated the other ones unless we right click and create rotated directions. There we go. Now let's call it good arrow and go into our event editor. New condition. To do, we could either choose a keyboard press, but we're going to choose a player press. So joystick, read joystick state, which means check what the joystick's doing. Just read it. And we don't want up selected. We just want fire button 1, which starts off as control on the keyboard. Okay. Player 1 presses fire, and we want the player to launch an object, and they're going to launch the good arrow, use direction of player. Now let's run the frame. Yeah, it was shift. The whole time it was shift. Well done if you spotted that problem. The default button was shift. If you ever want to change these controls, they're in the application, runtime options, right at the bottom, default controls. And yes, you'll see it was shift for button 1, control for button 2. Okay, so it fires when I press shift. Let's say that a new condition. If I'd put these arrows in a group, it would have saved time because they're going to behave similarly. If this collides with another object that's an obstacle, I want it to be destroyed. If it collides with a enemy, I want it to be destroyed, and we can also destroy the enemy. Oh, put it in the right column, put it in the enemy column, that lightning column. And then a new condition, I can't edit it to be this, so let's remake it that if the good arrow collision with the backdrop, destroy. Okay, so F8 to test that, and whatever direction I'm I'm gone. Whatever direction I'm walking in, it will shoot in that direction, which might not be ideal, and in the advanced bit of this video I will show you how to shoot in multiple directions. You could just have a different button. Smash the door, get the money. Great, that works fine. You could have multiple buttons with multiple commands. You press fire button 1, then you launch it that way. If you press fire button 2, you launch it another way. But I'll show you something that works a bit better than that. Now, the enemies, we're going to give them health. Let's make this a bit more advanced. Rather than just destroying them, let's give them an alterable value. So a new alterable value called health. Now if that's A, B and C by default, this one hasn't got any, so if I get to C and call it health, it means that they'll synchronize, as in alterable value C is called health on both of them, which makes it easier. So I can say that if there's a collision between the arrow and the enemy, I can just say alterable values subtract from health, and the others aren't labelled because they don't match across the whole set of enemies, but health does because I've said it on both of them. So health subtract 1. Right, now I need to give them some health, otherwise they'll die immediately if I set a rule for it. So health 1, health 1, and then this guy can be health 3. A new rule: if an enemy's alterable value, if their health is equal or lower, and we'll choose lower just in case we have weapons that take off more than 1 health. If it's equal or lower to 0, then destroy. So I should be able to now, I run the application, shoot these guys, and then this guy, oh, what happened to him? He must have got hit by Ah. Okay. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Ah, now, if this comes up on your keyboard because you press Shift lots of times in a row, go to the ease of access and turn off sticky keys shortcut. There we go. That one. That's what you needed to click. Turn on sticky keys when Shift's pressed 5 times. It's
Always
for
scan this
accessibility
section.
options, and it's very annoying. But there you go. Great. I can shoot. If you want to give yourself some ammo so that you can't just spam the button and shoot lots of times, you can do that. You could give yourself an alterable value. So you could have a new alterable value, arrows, and then you can say when player 1 presses fire, we insert the player's alterable values if their arrows is greater than 0. Then they can do it. So let's start off with 10 arrows. Haha, did you spot my problem? I didn't subtract alterable values, subtract from arrows 1. So every time you shoot, the arrows will go down until you run out of arrows, and then maybe we could have some arrow boxes on the floor. Let's just clone this for the moment and call it pick up arrow. You could also have it maybe that the arrows stop when they hit the wall, and use some flags or something like that to change it. So pick up arrow. There you go. A new condition. The player collides with another object. Pick up arrow. Then let's add to the arrow alterable value. Let's give them 10. And destroy the pick up arrow. Let's try that. Shoot 10 times. Pick up more. Yeah. Great. Okay. That works fine. Now, you might want to be able to attack locally. So let's just do that quickly. So maybe a sword or something like that. So what we can do is create an active object, and let's just make it, I don't know, some kind of force field with lots of swervy lines, or maybe even a sword swipe. Let's do a sword swipe. Not that it looks brilliant, but we could add some animations to this so it moves from side to side. Adding animations is just pushing the plus button, and then you can play through them, and in the direction options you can set it to loop or do other things. But anyway, just for the moment we will have a sword swipe. Okay, and I need to set in the direction, so I want to flip it so that it's that way, and then we can go 8 directions, so I'll move it up to 8 directions, create a rotated frame. There we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to say a new condition, always, and we could always set, oh, and we've already got an always. Let's be tidy. Let's find it. Always. There we go. Always. We can always set the position of this position, select position, to be on top of the player. Great. Let's just test that out. That always didn't really work. Did I put it in the wrong column? Yes. Okay, it needs to be on the always column. There we go. Also notice that my sword swipe is right in front of my face, so let's just set it so that the sword swipe comes out. That was the center point, the hotspot that I did there, and I moved it more to the side so that when it attaches to me, there we go. Now we also want to always set its direction to be our direction. So direction, let's get it across. So right click on that same tick, we're adding another action, direction, look in, no, not look in the direction of, sorry. Select direction. Direction, select direction, use a calculation, and let's just find out the player's direction. So it's under animation, current direction. So now, as I walk around, check out my sword. Right, so the only, no, I've dropped it. I've died. So we only want the sword to appear for a few seconds. So I'm going to give the sword a life counter. So I'm going to use its ultra values, also name it as well. Sword. Lifespan. And I'm going to say that I've already got one of these, so you can add a new condition under the timer and every 100th of a second. But I'm going to say every 100th of a second, subtract from its lifespan 1. New condition, if the sword's ultimate values compared to lifespan, if the lifespan is lower than 0, and I want you to destroy it, or in fact lower or equal. And we will set its lifespan to be, I don't know, 600ths of a second. Now, new condition. If the sword collides with another object, any of the enemies, let's destroy them outright. Destroy. Okay, and we also want to say, new condition, if the player presses fire button 2, which this time is control, then we want to create a sword on top of the player. Doesn't matter, it'll move on top of the player anyway. But we also want to insert the fact that they can only do that if pick or count, there aren't any compared to the number of swords. There's no swords there. So let's run this frame. Oh, there we go. Didn't last long, but I can use my sword and my arrows. Now, to make it a bit fairer, so that you can't spam the sword, I'm going to set another ultra value calling sword swipe. And I'm going to say that your sword swipe needs to be lower than 0, or lower and equal to 0, before you can sword swipe. But when you press it, let's set the sword swipe to 100. So when you press your sword swipe, it's going to set it to 100, and then we need it to count down. So every 100th of a second, ultimate values, subtract from sword swipe 1. So there we go. You press a button, the sword comes out if there's no swords. If your sword swipe is lower than 0, then set the sword swipe higher than 0, so you can't swipe again until it counts down, and it'll take about a second. So let's try that. There we go. Wow, that second seems a long time. 1 and... oh, there we go. So that seems a bit harsh, so we'll set the sword swipe to a lower number. 50. There you go. Well, been destroyed. Need to play this game better. Right, I told you I'd quickly show you a way of doing aiming. We'll just use the mouse for this. And so the easiest thing to do is to create an object which is actually invisible. So I'm going to call this cursor. I don't care that it's a diamond. We'll leave it like that. Well, I'll draw something on it to make it more. So it's meant to be a target. So cursor. Then I will make it invisible. On our always rule, I'll attach it. Always set the cursor's position. Set the x coordinate to be the mouse's x coordinate, and position set the y coordinate to be the mouse's y coordinate. That means it always be where the mouse is. Now that's really helpful because the mouse isn't an object itself, but the cursor is. So now we can say a new condition. The mouse user clicks, single click. We can then get our guy to launch an object, the good arrow, in the direction of, relative to, wherever the cursor is. So we also probably need to subtract from the arrow count. So ultimate values, subtract from arrows 1. That didn't work. Let's have a quick look at what was happening there. So this thing, if it is not following us, let's check that always rule again. So I've done it again. Did you spot that? I put it on the wrong line. Always. Here we go. There we go. And now I can move with the keyboards and shoot with the mouse. Make it invisible again, that cursor. Right, there we go. There we go. And there's some advanced weaponry techniques. Maybe I should take him out with my sword. Take this guy out with my sword. Yeah, great. There we go. And get the money. Hopefully you'll join me for the last session. Right, make sure you save this. We're on number 6. And I'll see you for the last session.